Chairman, and going kind of on the same lane that Mr. Peters was, but not necessarily the same question, but talking about the accelerating change or lose. When you had originally drafted that as the Air Force Chief of Staff, you outlined the urgent need for technology advancement in your accelerated or change or lose comment. An important factor in our ability to outpace our competitors is the health of our defense industry. Are we able to actually leverage them in an accurate way to be able to have the same mentality to, as you said, accelerate change or lose with the industrial base in the current state that it's in?
I do think we can. And here's the thing I've found as a service chief for the past 3 years after I wrote Accelerate Change or Lose, that it's not a flip of a switch. It's a bit of a culture change. It takes a bit of time to get it bought into the force and start to move. And so what I have seen is aspects of the defense and industrial base, aspects of the defense industry to start to shift. We've been able to do it in certain programs, a couple programs for the Air Force. The B-21 program is a good example.
Right.
Sentinel's a good example. Next Generation Air Dominance are good examples where we've taken a different approach to drive ourselves in a different direction. I would say the same thing with AFWorks, where we've been able to build relationships with smaller companies and smaller technology and have them play in the competitive space. Because that's what happens outside of the Department of Defense. And so we've been able to make some advancements in those areas, but you're still going to have the major defense acquisition programs that are a bit broader. But we are making progress, and that's something we got to continue to do, and if confirmed. The same energy I put in as the Air Force Chief of Staff on accelerating change is the same thing you expect from me as the chairman. If
well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, in the private sector and any sector, we have to accelerate change, or you do fall behind. So I agree with what you're saying. But how do you keep the industrial base nimble without sacrificing legacy systems and knowledge at the same time?
Well, I think part of this is the aspect of how we write our contracts, how we incentivize and set the business model. Realizing our defense companies have, have stakeholders and they've got to report to, and at the same time, we've got to make sure we provide the combat capability for our joint force.
All right.
And so it's important for us to come together, and so we're not talking past each other or debating on different sides of the aisle on this or different sides of the perspective. It's really how do we come together and figure out how we move forward.
Right.
The way I operate is basically on a Venn diagram. There's some things we agree about. Let's get those and move those forward. And the things we disagree about, how then do we break down those barriers and then help improve? Part of that's building relationships with industry so they understand where we're going and what they're trying to achieve, and then we can work together to ensure we're doing what's right for the nation.
Right. Switching gears a little bit, nearly everyone that comes in front of this committee this year has talked about the challenges we have with recruiting. There's also been obviously comments about having to change our posture a little bit because our lack to be able to actually man some of the systems that we're trying to move forward with or some of the areas that we're trying to grow in. But at the same time, during COVID, we had let 8,000 capable servicemen and women go for not wanting to get the vaccination. As more technologies come out, we think that they probably had the right to do so. But how do we bring those individuals back into the fold now that the pandemic is, quote, over, and get them back plugged in and reinstate them to where they should be if they choose to come back?
Each of the services has a process to allow those members who want to return, and they'll review their them coming back into the service.
Do you support bringing them back in?
On a case-by-case basis with the reviews done by the service.
What would be the case-by-case? I mean, what are red flags for you?
Well, in some cases, there were other factors beyond just the COVID vaccination that may prevent them from returning.
But it was if it was based just specific on the refusal to get the COVID vaccine, you support bringing them back in?
I'd be supportive, but I'd defer to those that are going through the cases before I don't.
Well, obviously, being the chairman, you're going to have a big sway in it. If you say, hey, guys, let's bring these guys back in, if this was the only thing that was on their mark, and you say, let's bring them back in, I think most people probably follow that leadership.
Somewhat true, but I'm not in the command chain if confirmed as a chairman, I'm not in the command chain. There's commanders that make those decisions, but I will provide my advice on how best to approach moving forward.
Well, thank you for your service. Ma'am, Ms. Brown, thank you for your service too and supporting him along the way. We really appreciate you and the sacrifice you made in raising the family while he was serving the country, and all the 20 moves and making the house a true home for him to come to and feel comfortable. So thank you for that. Sir, appreciate your service and appreciate the conversation we had in my office. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Senator Mullin. Senator Rosen, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, General Brown.